All right. Now I'm recording.
Okay. We're on Daf Yud Aleph of Shekalim. So yesterday we said that certain kalim are ma'ake, that we're not allowed to bring korbanos unless they're there. Anything that has the word nochach or tzela. So we said, according to one opinion, you need, Chachamim say all you need is the kior. But the other opinions say even the menorah and the shulchan, because it says tzela and nochach. And Rosh Shmuel ben Nachman says, afilu sima ma'akev. When it says things like vayosem, like you place the mizbeach, the paroches, and other things, that's also ma'akev. So how do the Chachamim say that it's only the kior if it's not there? It's ma'akev. On Rav Chanina, depends. Kan b'avodah shebifnim, kan b'avodah shebachutz. The mizbeach that's in the azara, which is chutz of the heichal, so that doesn't require anything, just the kior. But the avodot that are done in the heichal, so that would be ma'akev on the mizbeach hazav, unless you have the shulchan and the menorah and all the other things that says sima or tzela or nocha. The Kohanim Gedolim were arrogant, because we said that the building of the ramp that the Kohanic Godel, when they burnt the paraduma, throughout history, there were only 10 paraduma burnt by 10 Kohanic Gedolim. And when they would do it, they would build a ramp to lead the paraduma so that there wouldn't be any tumah. And they would spend mishishim kikre zav, hayimotzim b'shaya kivsa shel para oimed, v'laya echad me'an motzi parasu b'kivsa shel chavero. They would tear down the ramp built by one of their previous Kohanim Gedolim. They wanted to have their own. That's their arrogance. And Yisif Rabbi Lakoimi Rav Manav Atani Shimon HaTzadik. Shimon HaTzadik, who was the Kohen Gadol by Sheni, Shtei Paros Asa. He also made 2 paradumas. Lo bekevesh oitzi azu. In fact, in his own lifetime, he tore down his own ramp, built a new ramp. So are you going to tell me Yisachol Lamemer Shimon HaTzadik Shachatzaya, what he was arrogant? So Ma'ikadon al Shem Mailehi Bepara Silsuli Bepara. It's an elevation for the para. It's a covet for the para. So and Chanami, Rosh Shimon HaTzadik fulfilled that. Tani, we learned Zizin Uksam Ayuyotz Mikan Mikan. On either side of the ramp, they had various walls and projections and beams sticking out, so that they would, the Kohanic Gedolim, as they would lead the paraduma on the ramp, they would be careful not to take them off the ramp, because they could be overhung with these projections that could convey tumah to the paraduma. Then there was a machlokes in the Mishnah between Rabbi Kiva and Yishmael, whether you could do business with the excess flour and sell it. So Rabbi Shmuel said you could. Rabbi Kiva says it's not fitting for the Beis HaMikdash. Ela imratza. Yeah, I have such a low. There is a way to do it if you guarantee the principle to the Beis HaMikdash, that the Beis HaMikdash would not lose. The prophet would go to the Beis HaMikdash and you guarantee the principle. Then it's permitted. Kador Barzmina it paket gabi madal the yasman. Rav Kana was given assets of Isomim to manage, and he did it that way, where he guaranteed the principle and he shared the profits. Also, Shal Rav Man Amarle and he did it this way without a problem. Boys, the means if you accept to make sure you guarantee the principle, you share the profit, that would be permitted, even though there might be like ribis, because it's viewed as a loan, but for the benefit of Yisomim or Hegdish, it's only rabbinic ribis, and we allow it. Rav Chia bar Abba Yispag Gabi Madel Yasma Vavikin, he also did the same for Yisomim. Then we said Moiser Peros. What's the explanation of Moiser Peros? Masnisan Rav Shmuel. Rav Chia bar Yosef Posser Masnisan Moiser Peros Schar LeHegdish. That if they had extra flour and oils and wines and sold it, those profits would go to the base of Mikdash according to Rabbi Shmuel, not like Rabbi Kiva. Moiser Nesachim, when the Mishnah mentioned excess of the wine libations, Zusar Revius. So, for example, let's say somebody was contracted to provide one bushel for 4 sela. I'm sorry, just the opposite. Yeah, 4 sa'a per sela. And then the price went up to 3 sa'a per sela. It's more expensive. You would have to give it to the base of Mikdash 4. So the even though normally you only get 3, when base of Mikdash pays the sela, you would have to provide the 4th, the sa'a revius. That's extra. That is called moiser nesachim. Excuse me, that's called moiser nesachim. Zusar revius. Rav Yochanan Posser Masnisa. Rav Yochanan explained the Mishnah that moiser peros is not like what we said that Rabbi Shmuel held that you could do business with excess flour. Zusar revius. This is this extra saw that normally you would only get 3 for sale, and now you have to give them the extra 4th. Moiser nesachim lebirutzin. So when you came to give out a measure, the heaping measure, that's called berutzin, that belonged to the base of Mikdash. More of a less like Rav Chia bar Yosef berutzin. Does Rav Chia bar Yosef not hold of this extra measure? What does he do with that? Because he mentioned that the Mishnah discusses that. Rav Chia madanafel l'sar revius. The same thing that you did with the extra saw, you did with the berutzin as well, which you do for the kitzah mizbeach. That is when you bought olos, so when the mizbeach was idle, you kept on offering animals. That's same halacha. Because they mishtak mishal hegdish, so he needed to come up with different understandings of what it meant, this profit, because he held that the base of Mikdash didn't take, let's say, excess flour and excess wine and sell it. And lo b'shel aniyim. They didn't do business with aniyim. Lefichach zev v'zeh lo hayu more than beperos. Right? They didn't agree with the shita of Rabbi Shmuel that they could make profits with this extra peros. But I'll die to Rav Yochanan Kasha. Vataninan ondu migimol. That means if the price was Yisopik Midalit, if the price went down to the price is now more expensive, you have to provide that extra 4th. Vitaninan zevezel lo yumorim beperos. So yeah, lo yumorim beperos bekitzlam mizbeach. What they didn't agree to is what you did with that extra money. They didn't hold that you went to buy these olos for an idle mizbeach. But they did admit that it could be used for a klisharis, to buy and build klisharis. Fine. Ad kedoin beirut tzibur. We said what you do with the extra measurements, the heaping measure for communal korbanos. Well, what about if a yachid brought? If it went to buy klishares, klishares has to be built with communal funds, not private funds. So there's a way to do it. The Tanina, Isha Shasta Now remember we talked about mothers that would make an apron for their sons who are Kohanim, and they gifted it to the tzibur. Same thing, Akidon Beirutse. So, same thing by the Beirutse. Now, Akidon Beirutse Lach. These heaping measures are liquid. And says the Gemara, feel Beirutse Yavish. You're measuring out flour, and there's a heaping measure. Same din. Kaidi Tanin Tamon. Hanisachim Shekitchu Bikli. Let's say you put wine libations in a kli shares and you sanctified it there. Now, let's say these wine libations are accompanying a certain korban. The korban becomes pasul. So im yeshram zevach acher yakrivu imo. If you have another korban that needs wine libations, you can add those wine libations to it. The imlav lanu yufsal belina. And if they went overnight, you didn't do anything with it, they would be pasul belina. That means they have the same kedusha. There is being put into a kli shares makes them have hegdish like a regular korban. Mishnah. So there was a certain amount of ketores made every day, 365 solar days, and then 3 portions of ketores produced on Yom Kippur. So you had 368. Now a lunar year is only 354. So there were 14 extra portions. And now you have them. And now the new fiscal year comes. This Taurus was bought with the old shkolim. How do you move this incense into the new year using the new shkolim? So it's a complicated procedure. So machlokas Rashi and the Ritva how to learn in terms of how to explain what the Gemara is going to tell us. Mafrish mimena schara umnin. They would take funds from the old truma. That's how Rashi learns in Masechta Shvuos, or from the leftover ketores. And they would remove the kedusha from it, al schar moisa umnin, to pay the wages for the craftsman that was making the ketores. That secularizes and the kedusha goes to the wages or goes to the ketores. The chayzer v'loikanoi trumas chadasha. Then you take coins from the new truma and you buy that ketores from them. The imba chodesh bizmano, if the money came in the right time, that is el aleph benisan loikanoi trumas chadasha v'imlavin ayishana. You buy it with the new trumas. Otherwise, you use it with the old. Loy nimsa hegdish mischala hegdish. How can you use one hegdish and pay off another hegdish with it? On Rav Shimon bar Bizna, maybe most machal al binyan. They secularized the most on the craftsmen that were building walls in the Beis HaMikdash. And then those funds were secularized. Then they were machal al the ketores. Well, maybe the Ketores was given as the wages. Then what happens to the money? These were the families that made the Ketores. They were experts in formatting the recipe for the Ketores and to bake the showbread. That has to be only if they were owed money for the previous year. What if we didn't owe them money from last year? Also, Rabbi Bob b'shem Rav Chia b'shem Rav Yosi, mekaitzin b'henes hamizbeach. You would buy oilos to keep the mizbeach going when it was idle. Rav Babar coined boy koimi. He asked a question in front of Rav Yosei that Mechafa Shita Rav Chia Bar Bab, that the Shita Rav Chia sort of reversed his opinion. Rav Chia Bar Bab Tamon, Tzrichle v'kopshitele, had tzrichle v'klisharis, had pachle b'kitzle mizbeach. Sometimes once he was asked a question about can you use it for buying klishares, and then he resolved it by saying no, we use it to buy animals for the kitzah mizbeach. Because they argue the spalgin pitma b'chulin, that let's say someone manufactured the ketores in a non-hegdish kli. Rav Yosef Rav China Amar psula. Such ketores can't be used. Or should be Levi Amar ksheira. At my time, Rav Yosef, that it's not kosher. Rav Chanina kodeshi shetehei av yosef b'kodesh. The manufacturing of the incense has to be in an area that's hegdish, but not necessarily in klishares. But he holds it has to be in a klishares. My time, Yeshua ben Levi. Kodeshu shetei ba mitrumas alishka. The only aspect of kedusha has to be bought with money from the trumas alishka, but it doesn't have to be formatted in the azor. Rav Yossi be Rabbun, Asir Rav Yossi b'Chanina k'Shmuel. This goes according to Shmuel. Rav Yossi ben Levi Rav Yochanan. What's this based? The Sanina. Magdich nechasav. Person donated his assets to the base of Midrash. Bayu ben dvarim in the korbanos tzibur. Among his assets were animals that could be used for korbanos tzibur. Rav Yochanan Amar, what kind of assets are we talking about? Ketores. Some of Rav Yochanan holds that a private person could have ketores. How? The only way Rav Yochanan would work out, it's like one of the people in Beis Avtinas who would be paid ketores for their wages, like we said. But Rav Yosef Rav Shmuel, the Amar Ravuna b'Shem Shmuel, machteshet asuosa keklishares l'kadosh. They made a mortar and pestle, to grind something, and they used that to manufacture. Midrabanan, it was a klishares, but that was enough to be magdish the ketores. And Shmuel therefore holds of that opinion that it could be formatted in a secular way. Shmuel Amar Kalhu b'moisar the ispalgan osir tmimim. Regarding unblemished animals, Shmuel Amar niftin kitmimim. That when you redeem them, you can redeem them without a mum. We're talking about when you had 6 animals, because they needed 2 every day, and we're talking about for the daily olas atami. And now you go into a new year, you have 6 animals sitting around from the previous year. So according to Shmuel, you could redeem them even without a mum. By using the new funds, that's the way we're magdish it. You didn't have to be a mum. Rabbi Yochanan no niftin kipsul mikdashim. Just like any other korban, you have to wait till it gets a mum. Now, let's say there were goats that were supposed to be used for example, the chatas of the Rosh Chodesh, and they got lost and they were found after Nisan. So it's a leftover chatas. What do you do with it? If you can redeem an ola as a tamim, you certainly could do a chatas. Al daidid Rav Yochanan, who says you can't. Rav Zira Yiru, you can't just redeem it. You got to let them go out to pasture until it gets a mum. When it gets a mum, you can redeem them. Rav Yitzchak, you can take the animal, the goats, which are good, and use them for kitzah mizbeach as olos. The kasha, you can ask me a question. Can you take a chatas and make it an ola? Yeah. They're not designated when you korban sibor is designated at the time you shech them. So if you have an animal that was designated to be a chatas, but you didn't shecht it that way because it's still alive. Now when you shecht it, you designate it as an ola, you're allowed to do it because by a korban sibor, it's nikba at the time of shechit. They said it's not based on that. It's a Tanai in Bezdin that if you have a leftover goat, and even though it's a chatas, it's a Tanai in Bezdin that they created it that you could bring it as an ola if it's left over. Okay. So
what time tomorrow?
Tomorrow I can do 8 in the morning. Or if you want, we can do in the afternoon, like 5 o'clock or 5:30 or 4:30, whatever is better for everybody else.
I'm okay in the afternoon.
Say it again?
Okay, I'm going to be in shul tomorrow, so I'm not sure which meeting I'm going to go. So I may even go to 8 o'clock. So I mean, I could be back for 8 from shul.
Right, so let's do it in the afternoon. That way nobody has to worry about it.
Okay, but what time in the afternoon?
We can do it late because Yom Tov starts late.
Yeah, but we're making Shabbos early, no?
Fine. So, but even so, I mean,
hold on. What time is?
Shabbos starts at 7 or later.
No, but let me see when what times are we davening in shul?
Okay.
Because usually last week it was 5:40. Or they don't have the new one yet. Okay, but let's assume last week it was 5:40.
Do it at 4:30. Let's do it at 4:30. Is that okay?
Okay.
Fine, or whatever. Okay. And what about Moitze Shab? What about Moitze Yom Tov?
No, it's Yom Tov.
No, we can.
Moitze Yom Tov.
Sunday night we'll do 9 o'clock because by the time it's out at 8:30 and you have to help or 8:50.
Okay.
Let's do it 9 o'clock. Okay.
Okay. So 4:30 and 9.
4:30 tomorrow, 9 o'clock Sunday night.
Okay.
Okay, very good.
Okay, have a good Yom Tov, everybody.
Good evening. You too. Good Shabbos, good Yom Tov.
Shabbos, good Yom Tov.